Your tomato plant looks perfect. It's tall, it's green, it's covered in flowers. Dozens of them. Every single morning you walk outside expecting to finally see a tomato forming. And every single morning, nothing. Just more yellow flowers, and then, a few days later, those same flowers turning brown and falling to the ground. Here's what almost nobody tells you. Your plant isn't sick. It isn't broken. It's actually doing something incredibly intelligent. It's protecting itself. And once you understand exactly what it's protecting itself from, you can fix this in a single week. So here's exactly what's happening to your plant, and exactly what we're going to fix today. Most gardeners believe that once a tomato flower opens, the rest is automatic. The flower turns into fruit, end of story. That's the common belief, and honestly, it makes sense on the surface. The flower is there, it looks healthy, why wouldn't it become a tomato? But here's the contrarian truth that changes everything. A flower opening and a flower becoming fruit are two completely different biological events, and the gap between them is where almost every tomato problem actually lives. Your plant can produce flower after flower in perfect health, and still produce zero fruit, because fertilization, the actual moment that turns a flower into a tomato, never happened. In this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly why this happens, starting with a cause most gardeners completely overlook, then the single biggest reason tomatoes fail to set fruit, and finally, every practical fix that's backed by real research, not garden folklore. This isn't guesswork. Everything in this video comes from documented agricultural research and real case studies, including a university extension report and a controlled greenhouse pollination trial, so by the end, you'll know exactly what's happening in your garden and exactly what to do about it. Point 1. Hidden heat you can't see on the thermometer. Let's start with something that catches even experienced gardeners off guard. You check the weather. It says 88 degrees. That's warm, but it's within the range your tomato plant should tolerate. So why are the flowers still dropping? Here's the part nobody mentions. The temperature your plant actually experiences can be dramatically different from the temperature on the forecast. There was a documented case from the University of Maryland Extension involving a gardener growing a mortgage lifter heirloom tomato. The plant looked completely healthy, strong growth, plenty of flowers, but every single bloom was dropping. The regional temperature that day was 88 degrees Fahrenheit, just inside the tolerable range. But the plant was sitting in a container directly against a south-facing brick wall. That brick wall had been absorbing sunlight all day like a battery, and it was radiating that heat straight back onto the plant. The actual temperature around the flowers wasn't 88 degrees, it was closer to 95. And that's exactly the threshold where tomato pollen starts to sterilize. The fix was almost absurdly simple. They moved the container away from the wall, into a spot with better airflow and only morning sun. Within days, new flower clusters started setting fruit normally. This same hidden heat problem shows up constantly with containers on concrete patios, plants beside vinyl fences, and even raised garden beds, because the exposed walls of a raised bed absorb solar radiation and heat the entire root zone far beyond the surrounding soil temperature. Black plastic pots are particularly brutal here. Direct sun can push the soil inside above 90 degrees even when you're watering regularly, and that root zone heat alone is enough to trigger the plant into dropping its flowers. So before you blame the weather, look at what's actually surrounding your plant. Sometimes the real problem isn't the climate, it's the wall behind it. But hidden heat is only part of the story. Because even if your plant is sitting in the perfect spot, there's a far bigger mechanism working against it, one that explains the majority of blossom drop cases, and almost nobody connects it to the actual biology of how a tomato flower works. Point 2. The 50-hour window, the biggest reason. Here's something that will completely change the way you look at every flower on your plant. A tomato flower is what's called a perfect flower, meaning it has both the male and female parts in one single bloom. The male pollen sits in a tight tube of anthers, and instead of splitting open like most flowers, those anthers release pollen through tiny pores, almost like a salt shaker. That means the flower needs to be physically shaken, by wind, by an insect, by something, for the pollen to fall onto the sticky stigma below it and start fertilization. And once that flower opens, it has exactly 50 hours. 50 hours for pollination to succeed, not days, not a week, 50 hours. If anything disrupts that window, a heat spike, a sudden rainstorm, dry wind, high humidity, the flowers simply cannot be fertilized. And here's the part that surprises people most: once that window closes, it's permanently closed. The flower doesn't get a second chance. It will yellow at the stem, and within a day or two, it will drop completely. Now here's where it gets specific. Temperature and humidity don't just need to be roughly fine, they need to be within an exact range during that window. At night, the temperature needs to stay between 55 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Drop below 55, and the pollen inside the flower fails to mature properly, so even if pollination happens the next morning, the pollen itself is sterile. Climb above 70 to 75 at night, and the plant's respiration rate spikes, burning through the sugar reserves the flower needs to fund pollen tube growth. During the day, anything above 85 degrees causes the pollen to become tacky and non-viable. Push past 90, and fruit set slows dramatically. Past 94, it stops completely. And if you get an extreme heat spike above 104 degrees for even 4 hours, that alone is enough to trigger immediate flower abortion. Humidity matters just as much. Below 40%, the air is so dry that the sticky surface of the stigma dries out, and pollen simply can't adhere to it. Above 70%, the opposite problem happens. The pollen grains absorb moisture from the air and clump together inside the anthers, so they never release as a fine, free-flowing cloud in the first place. The sweet spot is humidity between 40 and 70%, with nights between 55 and 70 degrees. That narrow combination is the actual gatekeeper between a flower and a fruit. This is why two tomato plants growing right next to each other, in the same soil, watered the same way, can have completely different results, because the 50-hour window for one plant's flowers lined up with good conditions, and the other plant's didn't. Temperature and humidity explain most blossom drop. But there's a quieter cause sitting underneath all of it, something that happens not in the air around your plant, but inside the soil, days or even weeks before you ever see a flower. Point 3, too much nitrogen, too early. If you've been feeding your tomato plant a strong nitrogen fertilizer to help it grow big and lush, you may be accidentally causing the exact problem you're trying to solve. Nitrogen tells a plant to grow leaves and stems. That's its job. And early in a tomato plant's life, that's exactly what you want, strong vegetative growth. But applying high nitrogen fertilizer before the first fruit clusters have set creates what researchers call vegetative dominance. The plant essentially redirects all of its sugar and energy reserves into growing more leaves, leaving the flowers it already has without enough fuel to complete fertilization. And this isn't a quick fix once it happens. That vegetative dominance can take 3 to 4 weeks to wear off, which means every flower that opens during that window is likely to abort and drop, regardless of how perfect the temperature is outside. The practical takeaway is almost counterintuitive. Before your first fruit sets, you actually want a more balanced fertilizer, something like a 5-10-10 or 10-20-10 ratio, which gives the plant the phosphorus and potassium it needs for flowers and roots, without flooding it with the nitrogen that pushes it back into leaf-growing mode. Fertilizer timing is something you control directly. But there's a category of causes that's almost invisible, things that arrive on the wind, in your compost, or even in the structure of your garden itself. Point 4, invisible chemical threats. This is the cause that confuses gardeners the most, because the plant often looks visibly damaged in ways that don't match anything they did. Tomato plants are extremely sensitive to a category of herbicides that mimic plant hormones, specifically 2,4-D and dicamba. These chemicals don't need to be sprayed directly on your garden to cause damage. Wind can carry the spray drift, or even just the vapor as it evaporates, for miles. Even a microscopic dose causes the stems and leaves to twist unnaturally, and it halts reproductive development entirely. Flowers dry up and fall off the plant. There's an even sneakier version of this problem, documented in a case from Wisconsin. Multiple growers reported tomato plants with twisted leaves, stunted growth, and complete flower failure. After testing, the cause turned out to be a herbicide called aminopyralid, and it had entered their gardens through compost made from horse manure. The horses had grazed on treated pasture, and this particular chemical survives an animal's digestive tract completely unchanged. It remained active in the finished compost at roughly 10 parts per billion, an almost invisible trace amount that was still enough to shut down fruit production entirely. If you ever suspect contaminated compost or manure, there's a simple test for it. Plant a few fast-growing seeds, like peas, in the suspected material next to a control batch in clean soil. If the test plants show twisted stems or cupped leaves within 3 weeks, the material is contaminated and shouldn't go anywhere near your tomatoes. So far, everything we've covered happens outdoors, in open soil, with at least some access to wind and insects. But there's one environment where tomatoes face a problem that doesn't exist anywhere else, and it comes down to something most people never think about. Movement. Point 5, greenhouses and the missing wind. If your tomatoes are growing in a greenhouse, high tunnel, or even a sheltered patio with very little breeze, you're dealing with a completely different obstacle. Remember how tomato pollen is released through tiny pores, almost like a salt shaker? In open ground, wind handles that job constantly throughout the day. But inside a greenhouse, there's often no wind at all. Without that physical shake, pollen just sits trapped inside the anther tube, and the flower can look perfectly healthy while never actually being pollinated. A research trial from the Louisiana State University Ag Center tested 2 different ways to solve this. One method used a backpack air blower to blow air across entire rows of plants. The other used a handheld electric vibrator to directly shake individual flower clusters for about 2 seconds each. The air blower was faster, and it cut down on labor. But it actually performed worse, because instead of transferring pollen onto the stigma, it just blew the pollen away from the flower entirely. The plants pollinated with targeted vibration produced significantly more fruit, larger tomatoes, and higher seed counts. The blower method, despite being quicker, actually resulted in a net financial loss for the trial because of how much fruit set it lost. If you're growing tomatoes anywhere with limited airflow, you can replicate this at home with something as simple as a battery-operated toothbrush. Touch the vibrating tip to the stem just below the flower cluster for about 2 seconds, every other day, ideally in the middle of a warm, dry afternoon when humidity is lowest. That small amount of vibration does what wind would normally do outdoors. So let's bring this back to where we started. Your tomato plant covered in flowers that never become fruit isn't failing, it's responding to a very specific set of conditions that have to align. We started by uncovering the hidden heat that hides in brick walls, concrete, and black plastic pots, heat your thermometer never reports. Then we got to the real core of the problem, that 50-hour pollination window, and the exact temperature and humidity range that has to be hit for a flower to actually become a tomato. From there, we looked at how too much nitrogen too early can quietly stall fruiting for weeks, how invisible chemicals can travel through wind or even compost, and how a lack of simple airflow in a greenhouse can leave perfectly healthy flowers unpollinated. Here's the takeaway I want you to leave with. A flower opening was never the finish line, it was always just the starting gun. Fertilization is the real event, and now that you know exactly what it needs, the right temperature window, the right humidity, balanced nutrition, clean soil, and a little help with pollination when nature can't provide it, you're no longer guessing every time you walk outside and check your plant. You know exactly what to look for. And that's the difference between a season of empty flowers and a season of actual tomatoes. If this helped you understand what was actually going on in your garden, let me know in the comments which one of these turned out to be your problem. I'd genuinely love to know. And if you want more science-backed gardening breakdowns like this one, subscribe, there's more coming every week. I'll see you in the next one.